Welcome into another Dynasty video. It is week 15 and it is playoff week, the wild card round. We're going to be going through one by one each position. Each of us have a guy, and we're going to be breaking down studs and duds. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. We all got one for you guys. Couldn't be more excited to get into this. I got a couple playoff teams going myself. Only one this week because I got a bye in the other. Lucas, how many of you got going this week?
Yeah, I got two locked in, but then I got two more that are still, up for grabs as of this recording here on Monday night. So we'll see. I think it'll probably end up being three playoff teams, and I feel great about that.
Love it. Ryan?
I only got the one, but that one looks really, really good. My team is loaded, stacked. It's ready to go. I even got a few of the guys that we have as studs on my team. So I'm feeling really good about this next week as I do not have a bye.
All right, I love it. Let's get right into it. Lucas's stud quarterbacks for week 15. We've got Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. Lucas, let me hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, both coming off the matchup that was so great week 14 here. I think a couple things stand out there. First, with Josh Allen, he took over. It's that time of the year where the best players play like they're the best players. You got him putting the team on his back in some key plays against Cincinnati this past weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just Josh Allen time. I mean, he's been the number one quarterback scoring the past couple of years, so this may not come as a surprise necessarily to have him listed here for week 15. But I think with how that game went, especially that last third down for the Bills to ice it, keeping the ball in Josh Allen's hands and just seeing how clutch he is, this is where the men separate themselves from the boys. They got New England in a revenge game coming up, so really feel like the stars are going to shine here. And I think with Joe Burrow, it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate that he's, in that offense, they just couldn't come through when they needed to. The injury was just a week or two too long for him, and so they got nothing to play for. I think he'll still be out on the field, but when you got, your highly paid wide receivers and all the emotions that come with it, don't think they'll have T. Higgins, but you just can't imagine that they're going to be putting everything out there with, at this point in the season, kind of out of reach.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I'm really worried about Burrow in the playoffs. I'm a little worried about Jamar T, obviously, with the concussion. It's such a fantasy-driven team. You even got Chase Brown there, and now that they have nothing to play for, and that this team's been playing high-stakes football for a couple of years now, the worries are there. Let's go ahead and get into my studs and duds. Baker Mayfield. I got to be the first one to admit here, when we did the prep on this and we did the everything on this, I did for the entire postseason. These are the guys that only did week 15, but I'm sticking with my fucking guns here. They're studs and duds for a reason. If you're not going to show up in week 15, then you're not going to show up in the playoffs at all. Baker Mayfield, he is getting my stud of the week, and Sam Darnold, my dud of the week. And I'm going to start off with Baker Mayfield. He's getting some reinforcements, boys. Over the last couple of weeks, Baker has been struggling. The whole Bucs as a whole have been struggling, but the pressure, that dial, let me get in the camera. Oh, it's up. It's up right now. Panthers are right on their ass. He is getting Tristan Wirfs back this week. I know Mike Evans is in play. Jalen McMillan is in play. This offense could be at full force, and they got the Atlanta Falcons on Thursday night. And this guy, he destroys the Atlanta Falcons. 25 points in all three of their last three games. I think he's gonna put up a big one. And now flipping the switch over here to Sam Darnold. This guy in 3 of his last 5 games has had sub 10-point performances, and 2 of those were blowout wins. I think you looking at the writing on the wall in this Colts game. They might be trotting out Phillip fucking Rivers for all we know. Riley Leonard might not be playing quarterback, and this is an elite defense. I think this is going to be a game where Sam Darnold is going to have to do absolutely nothing. I'm talking 13 attempts. Just defense is going to be taking the ball away, getting them set up in good field position. I don't think Sam Darnold is going to go out there and have a huge game against the Colts, because I just think it's going to be an absolute ass whooping. Thoughts, concerns?
Yeah, it's interesting with Baker. I think the guys who have him on the team are fortunate to be in that position with how little he's been doing as of late. He's kind of had that higher floor than Darnold, like you mentioned, but if you're able to get into the playoffs still, you got Baker coming back with those reinforcements you mentioned. I think you might be looking ahead to a few nice weeks here.
Yeah, I love that Tampa-Atlanta matchup. That's going to be a common theme through this video. I just think that every time they play, it's a shootout. So Baker Mayfield definitely going to be a stud this next week.
Any Darnold haters in there with me, or what's going on?
No,
I mean, it's
it's
not even
crazy.
Darnold hate really for you, right? It's more so just game script. And I definitely took
Yeah.
that into account a lot when I was doing my picks as well. Like game script matters a lot. So I'm sure, yeah, he's gonna be fine, but they're just gonna be running the ball out for him for the most part.
All right, Ryan, let's see your guys. You are going with the rookie, Jackson Dart, and your dud. This one kind of surprised me a little bit. Toyotathon, Jordan Love. And I have a feeling to your reasoning, but let's hear your breakdown.
Yeah, so for Jackson Dart, I mean, the guy, every time he actually plays a full game, he's putting up massive numbers. And when I'm looking for a fantasy quarterback, I'm looking for a guy that can run the ball, dual threat, can give you some rushing yards, some rushing touchdowns. I look at Washington's defense, and like I said, I'm trying to play matchups here, trying to play game script. I just think that this is a game where like neither team really cares. They're just going to be playing kind of like pickup football in a way where defenses, they don't want to get injured. It's going to be a shootout, and Washington's defense is one of the worst in football. I think their personnel is just awful. I mean, all their players are damn near 40 years old, 35, 40 years old. It's a really bad defense, and Jackson Dart's going to exploit them. We've seen what he does against bad defenses this year, even against actually really good defenses. He had a monster game against Denver. He was really good against our Bears. I wouldn't say we're a good defense at all, but still, he was good against our Bears. So, I mean, Jackson Dart's already proven himself as a big potential, high ceiling play. And I think this Washington matchup plays perfectly into his hands. And then as for the dud, Jordan Love, I mean, I think this is maybe a little Bears bias, but just watching Jordan Love play against our team, I always feel like the reason why he's so good is just because he doesn't face any pressure. And we all know about how good Jordan Love is in a clean pocket. He kind of looks like Aaron Rodgers out there. He's just throwing it off his back foot. He's dicing up the defense. But when that pressure comes, it's a whole different story. Jordan Love is not good against when he's facing pressure. The numbers indicate that. Kind of reminds me of Jared Goff a bit in that way as well, where, you know, these guys don't really have great escapability. They aren't much of playmakers when they are pressured. So that's when the turnovers come. That's when the mistakes come. And I think at Denver is about as hard a place to play as it comes in the NFL. And he's going to be under pressure a ton. So if you think like, man, just because he beat the Bears and he looked incredible, it's like, no, we're talking about the worst pass rush in the league versus now going to the best. And I think he has a very big chance of, you know, it being a dud, and especially just also game script. It's going to be a really, you know, hard fought battle where I think they might lean on the ground game, and it'll be a very low scoring game.
Yeah, I like Go on.
I'll be shocked if Jordan Love puts up, 20 plus points. Like, I just can't see this. I think it's a super low ceiling on his potential scoring this week.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think Jackson Dart, yeah, you nailed it on the head. I think he's going to have a huge week this week. There's been a kind of a lot of, hate going on in the media. And it also always just seems like now that the Giants have the number one overall pick, they just somehow go out there and dominate when they have the number one overall pick. So that was even in the back of my head a little bit. I was like, they're going to go out there and they're probably going to hang 40 on Washington this week, aren't they? Just because they have the number one pick. All right, let's make our way into the running backs. Ryan, we're going to kick it off with you again here. You're rocking with Derrick Henry as your stud and Jonathan Taylor as your dud. One of the top running backs in the NFL this year in Jonathan Taylor. I'm intrigued to hear what you have to say about JT, but let's start with Derrick Henry.
Yeah, look, it's Derrick Henry's time of the year. I mean, this is when he comes out to play. This is when, he puts up those big weeks that we've seen over the past 5-ish years now. And I think this is a perfect matchup for him. First off, just the narrative of the game. Like, Baltimore needs this win. This is a must win for them if they want to stay alive in this playoff push. And I think what they're noticing is that, like, either Lamar's not healthy or, something's up with him to the point where we need to lean more on this running game. Everybody's clamoring for more Derrick Henry touches. Ravens fans, I hear the noise, and I think the Ravens are going to succumb to that because they know, look, they got to win this game. Cincinnati's the worst run defense in football. Derrick Henry comes out to play in these cold weather games, and I think that's just a perfect matchup. I think the game script is going to favor him very well because I think Baltimore's going to be playing with the lead for the most part here. And like I said, they can't be messing around putting the ball in the air as much as they usually would because of Lamar Jackson's struggles. And then with Jonathan Taylor, I just think the Colts offense now, it just looks so bleak without a quarterback in there. I mean, I feel like Jonathan Taylor was already facing probably stacked boxes because Daniel Jones wasn't scaring teams as much as he was in the beginning of the year, but even especially now with like Riley Leonard or maybe the corpse of Phillip Rivers coming in there, I just don't believe that Jonathan Taylor's going to have any room to run. And then now we're talking about the Seattle Seahawks defense, top tier run defense. We're saying it's in Seattle. We're thinking Seattle's going to be up, 20 points most of the game. So, I mean, maybe he gets it in the receiving game, but I just don't think he's going to have any room to run. And they're going to be playing from behind the entire game.
Yeah, as a Derrick Henry owner going into the playoffs, not getting that coveted first round bye, I'm hoping that this is one of those weeks where it's written in the history books looking back. So I like the call, and yeah, having played Cincinnati, I know there's a good opportunity for scoring there.
Yeah, I really like the Derrick Henry pick for this week. It was funny because he was my dud when I was doing this as a whole playoff unit, because I am really worried about his weeks in 16 and 17 if he's on your squad and you're getting it that far. But this week I think it's just going to be a money week for him. They have a lot to play for. That loss to the Steelers is huge, and Lamar definitely has been battling some lingering injuries. He had a good fantasy performance against the Steelers, but he still just doesn't look like the MVP player that he has been over the course of the last couple of years. And this is a game where I think Derrick Henry really explodes. A few weeks ago when me and Lucas did kind of some buy and sells, Derrick Henry was one of my buys, and I said that first round of the playoffs, I think Derrick Henry's going to have a game. I think he only had 18 against the Bengals last time. I expect him to have even more this week. And then, we can get into my duds as well, because I also have Jonathan Taylor as my dud. And I got Saquon Barkley as my stud. I feel like with Barkley, I just feel like there's not a whole lot of offensive identity going on in Philadelphia right now. And I do think like they have to figure something out. And their offensive identity all of last year was Saquon Barkley. It's not at the point anymore where we can keep him on a snap count and keep him healthy for the playoffs. Like, you got to start winning some games if you want to have a good seed and really get this offense hot going into the playoffs. And I think that's going to come on the legs of Saquon Barkley. I expect him to have a really strong finish to the regular season and carry that into the postseason. When you look at their playmakers, they have a bunch of them, but I still think Saquon Barkley is the best of them. And I expect them to really lean heavily into Saquon Barkley. They got the Raiders in week 15 as well. I think that's just one of those games when you talk about game script and the odds of seeing Kenny Pickett out there. Like, that could just be one of those games where you're just running the ball down their throats, genuinely. And I think this is where Saquon Barkley is going to really start to get hot, because this has been one of the most disappointing seasons in recent memory for him. I know he's been like kind of a one-off, one-on kind of guy over the last 3 years, but he put on back-to-back really good seasons, and I think he's going to really start to get going. And then with Dud, with my Jonathan Taylor pick, I agree wholeheartedly. It's just straight panic time in Indianapolis. That's a team that's probably going to miss the postseason after starting 8-1, and it's unfortunate, but like you said, them boxes are going to be filled, dude. I think there's going to be 8-man boxes. Like, I wanted to pick almost Michael Pittman as my dud for a wide receiver as well, but I just felt like that was just like low-hanging fruit to just go out. But the whole Colts offense, damn near. Lucas, let's get into your studs and duds. You got James Cook in there having a really impressive season, and you got Bijan Robinson, the guy. Let's hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, always been a big Bijan guy. I know that's not, hard to say necessarily, but it goes back to what Ryan was mentioning about just this emotionally charged matchup. The NFC South is, not the best across the board, but it's one of the tightest division races, and Atlanta's probably not going to they may very well be eliminated at this point. They're, not going to see green pastures this year, but Bijan Robinson is still one of those guys. He is kind of the identity of the Atlanta Falcons, and these games still mean something in those division matchups. So can really see them, again, going back to this late in the season, rely on your superstars. I can see him getting a lot of targets, a lot of activity across the board. The only thing that does worry me with running backs when your season's over is where is the value for the team other than just winning a divisional game and kind of that negative impact that your division opponent gets from the loss, of course. So they may not want to put the miles on his wheels, at this stage in the season. So we'll see how that goes. But I think if he gets a full workload, he's the dog. He's the best. He's so good at what he does. My dud, though, James Cook. I've definitely underappreciated James Cook as a starting running back in the NFL and a running back one in fantasy football. And he's made me look silly a couple times in the past here, but I think not only are you going against number one defense for running backs in New England this week, but again, going back to kind of what I mentioned with Josh Allen, I don't think this and those goal line scenarios and those short yardage scenarios and in those clutch late game scenarios, if I'm an offensive coordinator, if I'm a head coach and I'm given the option to keep the ball in Josh Allen's hands or, run it up, hand it off to James Cook, even though he is, again, maybe underappreciated at times running back, Josh Allen's the guy here. I think this is where we see the superstars come out, and James Cook, maybe just a bit of a star. So, a couple things going on here. I just don't see that high ceiling on James Cook this next week.
And I don't know. I love James Cook. He's been so good in that team that I mentioned I'm going to the playoffs in. I got him as my RB2, and he's just been a beast. I feel like this could be a game that turns into a shootout. So I'm not sure. Maybe he gets a touchdown here, but even if he doesn't get a touchdown, like you said, I could see him just piling up the yards, especially in a game that Buffalo needs to have in order to get back in this division. Also, the revenge factor. I feel like they might put up some points, so we'll see.
Yeah, I would agree with you in the sense that I've also underappreciated James Cook for pretty much probably his entire career. I think if we can even go back and look on it, I don't think any of us had him in our top 10 dynasty running backs when we were doing our rankings in July.
Yeah, we were wrong.
Yeah, we were all kind of wrong there. I think he's definitely proved his value in that sense. But like you said, I think I kind of agree with both of you guys. Like I do think James Cook is going to get his, but I don't know if he's going to get his normal top 10 numbers, just because this is the number one unit against fantasy running backs, and they've been putting guys down all year long. So I think we're going to get a little bit of a mix. I'm going to call it like just like a little 11 points from James Cook this week. How about that, boys? Yeah.
Dud.
Kind of a dud but hey, it's still 11 points. It's still double digits, and in the playoffs, you take any points you can possibly get. Does this put us in line for wide receivers now, boys? My position, my guys?
I think we're there.
I think we are there. Ryan, kicking it off with you. Ja'Marr Chase and George Pickens, the number 2 dynasty wide receiver this season, fantasy wide receiver this season. Ryan, go ahead and dive into it.
Yeah, so I'm kind of opposing Lucas's take here with the Joe Burrow thing, because I don't know. I feel like this is kind of a house money game for Cincinnati. They're just going to be out there playing free, playing fun. I think they want to play spoiler with Baltimore. And I don't know. I think Joe Burrow, every time he's on the field, he's kind of matchup proof. I know Baltimore's had a good defense here lately. They've definitely showed some things, especially with their pass defense. But I mean, Joe Burrow can go up against any team, any defense, and put up 300, 350 passing yards. I think Chase Brown's also is going to be the one that gets shut down, which means that Joe Burrow's going to have to pass it a lot more than usual. I could see him getting in like the 40 to 50 attempt range. I think Ja'Marr Chase is going to be the main recipient of that. This seems like a classic game where he gets 15, 20 targets. T. Higgins could be out. They just cut Jermaine Burton, not like he was doing anything anyway, but still. Like, there's just no weapons alongside Ja'Marr for this game. So it seems like a classic big game from him. And also just looking at his past matchups against Baltimore. Thanksgiving, he only had 18 points, but he did have 14 targets, 110 yards. But get this, last year, he had a 49-point game and a 63-point game against Baltimore. So basically, he was averaging over 50 fantasy points a game. He had 193 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first one. And then in the second one, he had 264 and 3 touchdowns. So Jesus. I think he lives for this matchup. He lives for this rivalry. He probably has beef with Marlon Humphrey or Nate Wiggins. One of those guys probably talks a lot of shit to him. He doesn't like that. So I think this is a game that Ja'Marr Chase gets off again and probably puts up 40. Like, he probably is going to be the wide receiver one on the week, in my opinion. And then George Pickens, I want to touch on him. I think the wheels are falling off a little bit with him. Honeymoon phase could be over. Had a lot of effort issues last week. Had a lot of just concerning things that make me feel like maybe he got the word that he's not getting an extension. Maybe he's going to be playing on a franchise tag next year. It just seems like his mind, his heart's not in it as it was earlier in the season. So I just think also going against this Minnesota defense, really underrated defense, even though they suck, Minnesota's defense has still been really, really good. Brian Flores is a scheme master. And I actually looked this up. Dak Prescott's never faced the Brian Flores defense, which is kind of shocking. So I actually thought of him as a potential dud just because he's kind of the style of quarterback that Brian Flores likes to expose. You know, one of those guys that processes really well, plays mostly from the pocket. So I think Brian Flores could confuse him with some looks he's never seen before. And I think George Pickens, given that CeeDee Lamb's back, which I think he will be, I don't think he'll have much opportunity as, you know, the number 2 option against a really good defense.
Ryan, you got some insane stats today. I think kudos to you on the research there. Had I known that about Ja'Marr Chase and his stats against Baltimore last year, we may have had a different dud. But again, as a Joe Burrow owner, I like to hear it. Yeah, that's insane. 50 points against the same team, and you know, like we've mentioned a few times, not just those division games. That's crazy. I can't see any other wide receiver one now.
The Pickens or the Dak Prescott and Brian Flores thing was the most shocking thing that came out of his mouth during that one. I cannot believe that he's never once played a Brian Flores defense. Like, that's nuts. Like, I mean, I know that, you know, we're not in the same division or anything, so it could add up in that sense, but that is crazy that he never even faced him once in Miami or once in Minnesota yet so far. It's pretty nuts. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm kind of worried about Dak Prescott maybe a little bit with this week, because first time against Brian Flores is not an easy task. All right, let's go ahead and move on here. Lucas, we got your wide receivers. You're rocking with Jalen Waddle, the stud, and then Ted McMillan here for your dud. Let's hear it.
Yeah, Jalen Waddle, man, I think the Dolphins right now might be the most slept on team, and it's again one of those situations where they're not going to make the playoffs, or if by the grace of God they somehow snuck in, like they're not a serious team. And so a lot of people probably aren't seeing what Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle to this point have been putting up week in and week out. So I just think he's one of those guys where the talent's always been there. With Tyreek, he definitely had a change in his situation and wasn't, you know, continuing that trajectory he started his career off with. And so maybe this is more of like a lifetime achievement award than anything that I'm giving Waddle right now. But I think it's that Pittsburgh defense they're going against. And, you know, another team that the Bears have placed, we saw that defense kind of get carved up by Caleb Williams and the Chicago offense. So I think just knowing that and knowing the situation that Waddle's in, I think this is a great opportunity for him to put up some crazy numbers. And then Ted McMillan, I really like him. I'd be lying if I said that, you know, maybe if I had seen an accept come in on a lot of the trade offers I'd sent for him, I might have a different opinion. But I've struck out to this point, a little bitter about that. And I think, you know, it's interesting. They're coming off a bye week. They, again, have a NFC South in division matchup playing the Saints, who just came off of probably their best week as a team. You know, beating the Bucs last week. Their defense held Baker to less than 150 yards or right around that number. No great wide receiver production. Obviously, they are getting some reinforcements back, so I think there is an opportunity for a little bit of change in Tampa's game. You know, there's clearly some holes there that New Orleans was able to take advantage of, but that's a real NFL defense. You know, I think with new head coaches too, really late bye week, we'll see how they react. I think that was a pitfall for Matt Eberflus in his time in Chicago, and very different coaches, very different situations, but it's not something that, you know, it's a given that the bye week means you're going to come back and respond. It can definitely throw off some rhythm, and I think that Carolina was just finding their rhythm before this last week. So interesting. I think just kind of that perfect storm. We'll see what happens. I'm banking on it not to produce much, though.
Yeah, I really like the bye week take there. I like that a lot, because I think Bryce Young has been, had nothing but inconsistencies in his career, and that's definitely been what's thrown him off. And just over the course of this season, it's just been inconsistent play. Like, genuinely, like, this dude might get another year just because, like, every 4 weeks he has, like, an insane game and just lights a defense on fire. And then also, like, in 60% of his games he has under 200 yards passing. So, like, yeah, I definitely could see this one being kind of throwing a little wrench in the tank for them. And the last time they played the Saints, they kind of got belted. Bryce Young had a horrible game. Ted McMillan, I think, had 11 points. I was looking into it. I don't think it was overly great. So, yeah, I could definitely see that one.
Yeah, I also wanted to add also with you on the Tet. Dud. Bryce Young's been historically really, really bad against the Saints, like you guys said. So going back, he's played them 5 times now. First time, 15 points was actually his best game. Then he had 8 points. The next matchup after that, 2 11-pointers. And then this year, he had a 2-point game. So he's had some really, really bad games against the Saints. I'm with you on.
Oh.
Touch.
Oh. Ryan, you there? I think
what
Ryan.
I heard is that my opinions are fantastic, and
I don't even remember who. Oh yeah, Jalen Waddle, stud by the way. Love that guy. Good for him.
come on, yeah, good player.
I really liked your Jalen Waddle one as well. I think he's having a really good season. I kind of regret trading him away. Traded him away in the draft time this last year for Tyler Warren, but I did flip Tyler Warren into a top 3 pick, so I can't complain too much about that.
Go.
At the end of the day, I've Jalen Waddle into a top 3 pick. I'll take that all day. Let's go ahead and get into my wide receivers, Lucas, since it's just me and you for the time being. Stud, Jameson Williams. Dud, Justin Jefferson. A couple of NFC North guys here, and I want to start off with Jameson Williams. I think he is finally turning into the player that he is. He is. I think this might be an extremely bold take, but I think Jameson Williams, with his speed across the middle, is maybe a top 3 most unguardable play in the NFL. Like every single time he comes across the middle, he has 3 yards of separation, and he just adds another like 15 yards to it at the end of the play. And we're finally starting to see them do that consistently with this guy. He is right. His numbers, I know Amon-Ra's not having a great season, but his numbers over the last like 6 weeks are right there with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, I think is starting to slowly become a 1A, 1B situation, like I was kind of predicting in the offseason. And the start of the season had me looking like a fool. I think Jameson Williams is going to have a really strong finish to the end of. There we go. We got Ryan back. Ryan, welcome back, brother.
Thank you.
Good? Here,
I'm
we were
good.
just talking about my studs and duds, Jameson Williams and Justin Jefferson. And I was just touching on how I think Jameson Williams is. I think Jameson Williams across the middle is one of the top 3 most unguardable wide receiver like plays in the NFL right now. I think that Detroit's doing a very good job of finally figuring that out with him, and it just leads to insane yards after the catch. His targets are up, his yards are up. I think it's slowly becoming a 1A, 1B situation in Detroit, and I think he's going to have a very strong finish to the end of the year, especially in Week 15. I think this is the guy who's going to just be dropping. I know he's got the Rams, so it's not like an easy matchup. But I think when you're talking about a Goff versus Stafford shootout here, like I think these guys go up face to face with the draft or with the trade that went down, and it's like they want to go at each other. I think it's going to be a high scoring affair. I don't care how good the Rams defense is. I don't care how bad the Lions passing defense is. I think this is going to be like a 28-24, 34-28 kind of game with a lot of yards and a lot of deep shots, and I think Jameson Williams is going to feast. Justin Jefferson, on the other hand, this guy, since J.J. McCarthy, since Nine's return, has one game over 50 yards. Every single game since his return has gradually gotten worse. His yards have gotten worse. His targets have gotten worse. There is zero connection between these two players, and it is so sad because we're talking about one of the most talented players in the entire NFL, maybe the most talented wide receiver. I think Ja'Marr Chase maybe has the slight edge in my opinion, but it's sad. And I have no faith in them kind of repairing this connection. I think this is something where I could easily eat my words on because they are facing off against the worst passing defense in the NFL in Dallas this week. So maybe it clicks, but even then, when Nine just put up his best career game against the Washington Commanders, 3 points. Like his targets are not valuable anymore. His talent is not valuable out on that field anymore for some reason, and they have no connection whatsoever. I'm extremely afraid of Justin Jefferson for the rest of the playoffs. That's where it's like a catch-22. You cannot bench Justin Jefferson. Like, can you? Like, do you guys think you can bench Justin Jefferson? He's wide receiver 18, and his numbers have only declined since J.J. McCarthy's been back.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at benching him. I think maybe it's a get-right game for him in a kind of a primetime atmosphere. I'm not sure, but at the same time, like the way he's played, like you said, don't get fooled by J.J. McCarthy's one good game against that Washington team. Washington's awful. They're one of the reasons I picked Jackson Dart as my stud. So, yeah, I don't know. I see Dallas as an improved defense. They'll probably get after McCarthy a bit. I wouldn't be mad at playing someone with a more favorable matchup. And then, like you said, with J-Mo, I think J-Mo's a total primetime player. It's seemingly like all his big games seemingly happen on national TV for everybody to see, which maybe skews everybody's perception of him as like some superstar. Like I always see just nonstop praise for the guy on Twitter, like he's some top 10 player, which I don't think he is, but I will admit he does show up a lot in big games. So I don't hate that pick at all either.
Yeah, I mean, J-Mo's a dog coming from that same high school as Luther Burden. So maybe something in the water there. They got the late bloomers. Luther will come into his. But Justin Jefferson, what's happened to him this year is such a fucking tragedy, man. What a great player. I'll take the Bears fandom out of this. He's just been one of my favorite players in the league to watch since he came in. And no injuries. His quarterback's just ass. Like, what a shame. No fantasy production this year, and it's not even his fault. So I wonder how that's going to shake out. I'll be sending some trade offers in every possible league because, it's sad when you look and see some of his weekly projections.
I love how he's handling it, though, right? Like, no diva. Yeah. He's not throwing JJ under the bus. Some receivers would have been called him a scrub. You know what I mean? But Justin Jefferson's just handling it like a total pro.
For sure. No, 100%. It is so sad. It is genuinely so sad. One of the funniest tweets that I've seen all year was forgotten great receivers of the 2020s, Justin Jefferson. And we were talking about like this guy is like a future Hall of Famer. Obviously, I think he's going to be a future Hall of Famer. I don't think this is going to be a long-term path for Justin Jefferson. I either think I don't think he's going to get traded or anything. I think there will probably be a change at quarterback, maybe, or Jetta starts playing, or 9 starts playing better. I don't know. But they've got to figure it out with him quick, and they've got to get their superstar involved because he's making way too much money to be putting up the performances. I know that their season's kind of out of reach for them at this point. Very, very difficult path for them to make the playoffs. But I don't know. It's just been sad. And at that point, like you said, it kind of takes the love out of the game. And especially in this situation, like this guy's got to be thinking about his future, right? Like the long term, like he knows the season's in the water and he's not getting any production with it as well. Like I think this could be the ultimate dud of fantasy football for the rest of the playoffs. Like it's the most fearful situation of having Justin Jefferson on your team and being in a playoff spot because there's a very good chance this guy goes out there and puts up 4 points. I could eat my words. Like you said, could be a good right game. This is a very bad passing defense, very, very bad secondary of the Dallas Cowboys. But we'll see how it goes. Let's go ahead and move into the tight ends. Lucas, we're going to kick it off with you. Stud, Tyler Warren. Phillip Rivers is going to be feeding him the rock this weekend. And then Brock Bowers is your dud of the week. Talking about, two very premier dynasty tight ends there. And you're rolling with Tyler Warren as your stud and Brock Bowers as your dud. Let me hear it.
Yeah, I'll just hit on Brock Bowers quick. I think, tough matchup with those Philly linebackers. They're great set of linebackers. Zach Bond, great in coverage, great tackler. And, Brock Bowers is a talent we haven't seen before in the NFL. And so we'll see what ends up coming. It's just a sad offense over in Vegas. And, I think in a different scenario, Brock Bowers is going to get back to being that coveted asset that he is. But I don't like the matchup in Week 15 here going against Philly, who really needs to make a statement and prove to themselves that they are still a dominant team. Tyler Warren, though, it's interesting because we've talked about that Indy offense. They're not going to have as much efficiency in the pass game. I think if I'm Shane Steichen, and let's just be clear, there's a very big gap in where I'm at with football knowledge, coaching. I'm an IT project manager. Shane Steichen is Shane Steichen. But if I'm Shane Steichen, man, I'm just thinking, how can I get creative here? This team, we started off so hot with those quick 8 wins. Things have come crashing down. We don't have a quarterback that's going to be supporting like that typical pass offense that we really surprised people with early in the league or early in the year. Gonna have to get creative. And so I think if I'm in that position and I'm wondering how I can go about the next couple weeks here and try and salvage something, sneak my way into the playoffs. There's not many people that I would want on my team more than Tyler Warren. And I know it's early. I know, he's still got a career ahead of him and, there's others who can show their skills as well. But Tyler Warren, just a jack of all trades type of guy. There's not going to be too much offensive production, I don't think, but I think a lot of it's going to end up filtering through Warren, whether it be in the run game, again, with those creative plays that they might need to get to spark some more of that JT offense, or just being one of those sound, reliable receivers. I like him in week 15 as they need to really bounce back here and show that they are still a playoff team even without their top 3 quarterbacks now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Riley and Leonard played. See, I actually look at his stat line. It wasn't horrible. I was kind of surprised to see that. But even if he's out there, I mean, we're talking about, a different breed there. Like for a full game, a whole week to game plan for a quarterback, and it's not going to be pretty, I don't think. But I kind of like what you're saying there. Just find the guy who can get open quick, short game. Just try. I mean, he's your best playmaker outside of Jonathan Taylor. So I can see it. I also still have the ultimate fear of Riley Leonard playing quarterback. Like I gotta lean that way as well. And then I like your take on Bowers, because it's still a tight end. He's one of the few guys who can go out there and have wide receiver numbers. But still, the linebacker matchup, Zach Bond's one of the most athletic guys in the NFL. I could see it. I'm very happy that I have a bye week next week and I don't have to worry about it because I'm a Bowers owner. But I could see it as well. I like the direction you're going with this one. We'll kick it over to me while we wait for Ryan to get back in here. But Ryan actually has a counterpoint to one of your guys. I'm rolling with Kyle Pitts and Hunter Henry as my dud. Ryan, you there? Welcome back, brother. Oh. All right, but I'll touch on Kyle Pitts first, okay? What you were talking about with, like, the whole Bijan thing earlier in the show, Lucas, and about, like, what's his workload going to be like? What are they playing for? They're out of the playoffs. What's going on? I think now with their situation, you got Kirk Cousins. I feel like they're going to kind of just let Kirk Cousins play his fucking ball. And with no Drake London out there, I feel like they're going to just – I mean, over the last couple of weeks, he's really been feeding Kyle Pitts. And I think that's why I'm so confident in Kyle Pitts this week, because I feel like Tampa Bay is obviously going to be, in my opinion, running up the score on these guys. And then from there on, I think you're just looking at finding that quick open receiver. They have a bad passing defense, the Bucs do, and he's really been liking Kyle Pitts over the last couple of weeks, and I think this is going to be a game where we maybe see Kirk Cousins throw the ball 45 times. Nothing to play for. You're out of the playoffs. I could see John Robinson also getting that workload. Like, I think it could be still pretty even, but I think Kyle Pitts is going to get a huge feast. And then with Hunter Henry, he's got a very athletic defense in the Buffalo Bills. They are the number 1 ranked unit against tight ends this year. They just completely eliminate them from the game. I don't see any sort of success through the air for Hunter Henry. I think if you go back and you watch that, like, the first time they matched up, Stephon Diggs had a phenomenal game. They were finding the receivers, but I do not think there's going to be anything open short or quick. Hunter Henry's not a field extending tight end. He's more of your big bruiser, your red zone target kind of guy. And with the athleticism of these Bills second level, I don't think he's going to have a good game. I think for the rest of the outlook on Hunter Henry as well for the rest of the year, I'm not too keen on him. He's got Baltimore the following week, but really, really low on Hunter Henry this week. This is a guy who has been, really productive, honestly, fantasy-wise this year. A lot of touchdowns, a lot of yards, really impressive season in this offense, but I see them looking elsewhere in week 15.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what this Bills-Patriots matchup may shake out to be. I think fantasy-wise, but also just, landscape of the NFL heading into the playoffs. It's going to be a matchup I carve out time to watch for sure.
Yeah. Ryan, did you like my Kyle Pitts pick?
Love Kyle Pitts. Big truther over here. And yeah, I mean, we touched on that game before. Like, it's going to be a shootout. Kyle Pitts is probably the de facto number 1 with Drake London likely missing another game. So yeah, definitely like that pick.
All right, cool. Ryan, we already touched on Tyler Warren and Brock Bowers with Lucas while you were experiencing technical difficulties. He thinks he's going to be a stud this week. You think he's going to be a dud this week, but you got George Kittle as your stud. Let me hear George Kittle first, and then we'll go into a little Warren debate because I kind of sided with both you guys on that one as well.
Yeah, so George Kittle is definitely going to be a stud. I mean, Tennessee, one of the worst defenses in the league. Obviously, you guys could make the argument that maybe it's going to be a blowout, so they're not going to pass the ball that much. But to get to a blowout, you need to put up those points first. And I think in getting there, George Kittle's clearly the number one option in the passing attack. Maybe you can make the case for Christian McCaffrey, but I believe George Kittle, he's downfield. He's a downfield threat. He's going to get loose against this Tennessee offense. And I think he's coming off a bye week, which is only good for a guy like him that deals with a lot of health issues. So they're going to be well rested and ready to go off the bye. And I think they're going to drop a ton of points on Tennessee. And George Kittle is going to be the recipient of I would assume, at least one touchdown. So I think he's going to be a big time stud. And tight end's always a hard position to find any kind of consistency and big play ability. I think George Kittle's as safe and as high ceiling as it gets. And then for Tyler Warren, fortunately couldn't hear what Lucas had to say, but I can assume that all of it was wrong because Tyler Warren is going to be a dud this week, just like he's going to be a dud for the rest of his career. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to get that ahead of myself, but I'm not a big Tyler Warren guy. I think last week he only put up one catch. He's kind of been down trending as Colson Loveland's kind of been, creeping up and taking back that tight end one spot that we all thought he would be pre-draft. But yeah, Tyler Warren's kind of been on the dip now for a while. I feel like that's kind of coincided with Daniel Jones' dip in production. And then obviously now Daniel Jones being gone, Riley Leonard maybe. I doubt Phillip Rivers is going to be available this quickly to learn the playbook. So if it's not Riley Leonard, who even knows who it's going to be? I think, like I said, Seattle's going to probably shut them down completely. They're in Seattle, which is an impossible place to play. We saw what Max Brosmer looked like in Seattle when he got his chance to start. So I could see something similar happening there. I know Tyler Warren's a nice little safety blanket, but I don't think that there's going to be enough volume and enough completions in this offense to even support a somewhat decent game from Tyler Warren. So that's an easy dud pick for me.
Yeah, I mean, the Seattle defense is definitely the scariest part of that for me. And my points and why I think he's going to be a stud is that offense, to your earlier point, is now limited in what they can do. And so I don't think there's going to be super high volume across the board, but I think there's going to be a higher concentration of those going through that safety net of Tyler Warren that, it's going to be an inexperienced starting QB in this offense, regardless of who it may end up being between Leonard and Rivers or the field. So just having a tight end that, going to stick a little bit closer to home here, have those quick wins, PPR, baby. We love it. We love getting those, 4-yard receptions, same as a 14-yard rush. So let's see what Warren can do. I think that may end up being like a Rashee Rice stat line for him. But, hey, if the receptions are there, man, the points will be too.
Yeah, I mean, I could easily see him having like a 7 reception, 48-yard week. I could also see him being completely shut down just because of how good the Seattle defense is. I'm going to go ahead and say this. If Nick Emanwari is guarding Tyler Warren, dud. If not, stud.
It's high praise. I do also think another point, Tyler Warren might be asked to block a lot more than usual just because Seattle's defense, maybe they're going to get after the quarterback. They probably want to keep a little bit more protection in there to help whoever might take over. So I don't know if that's what happened with Riley Leonard, but I assume that could be a part of why Tyler Warren only had 2 fantasy points last week.
Yeah, 100%. All right, that goes ahead and wraps up this week's studs and duds. We're going to be right back in next week with week 16 studs and duds. We're going to be rocking this the rest of the playoffs right up until championship weekend. Thank you, as always, to my boy Ryan Cash Sharma and Lucas Hoig for tuning in. Dynasty content will not stop, and we'll see you boys next week. Peace.